I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is. Eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on? It's not enough to say it's nuts, you have to explain why it's so nuts. The invention of artificial life, the cloning of human beings, possible contact with extraterrestrials, the systems which are in place to keep the world sane are utterly inadequate to the forces that have been unleashed.
Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Borealis. First, be sure to check out Doors of Perception. It's available to rent or purchase from our website. We're also having a fundraiser for production of Doors of Perception Part 2. If you'd like to help with that, we have links in the description. We're booking guests for June and July. If you have suggestions or you'd like to be a guest, email me, forbiddenknowledgenews@gmail.com. Today I want to welcome back to the show Borealis. He is host of Forum Borealis, where he features conversational, in-depth interviews with the most interesting authors, scholars, researchers, and freethinkers of today, exploring obscure, anomalous, and system-critical topics within history, culture, philosophy, science, and politics. Welcome back. How you doing?
Thank you. Is that a sincere question, or is it just
always sincere? Always sincere, my man.
Okay, not too well. I just came from Greece, been there almost a week, and now I'm going tomorrow to my hometown. I don't live where I'm from. So you managed to catch me between trips. Not pleasure. I wasn't lying on the beach, and I'm deprived of sleep, so I have to warn everyone.
Oh, well, I appreciate you taking time in your situation and travel and everything. Sure. So we'll try and keep it around an hour. No. I know you trying to rest up a bit, so I really appreciate you coming, and I'm looking forward to what we're going to get into today. I've done plenty of shows about this, and it's something that I think is very important for many to understand, especially those that are in a very religious space that tend to be indoctrinated by the programs of Abrahamic religions, and we're going to get into the origins of these and how they've been used for power and control since the dawning of these spiritual systems. So I'm very interested to hear, I know you've been doing some research and looking into this. Before we get into it, though, it's been a little while since you've been on. Just remind the audience a little bit about yourself and let them know where they can find your work.
Yeah. I was just going to say one more thing, and that's a disclaimer. If this show, because I have low energies, if this show isn't at par with what they usually get from you, it's all on me, okay? Blame me. So,
all good.
Anyway, yeah. My show is not too different from yours. It's kind of in the same ballpark. At least it overlaps a little. But we, like you said before we went on, we cover a lot of different things. And these days, yes, I'm looking into religions and stuff. Find it fascinating. I'm a history buff like you, but this part I haven't covered too much. So I don't know. It's always risky, you know. When COVID came, we lost some followers if we took a particular position, and they don't come back because people never want to admit that they're wrong. Same with this Israel-Palestine thing. If you actually say straight out, go against the mainstream, which is to celebrate the Nazis of today, bam, people cancel you. And they will definitely do it if they learn that both Islam, Christianity, and Judaism are all hijacked and not similar to the origins.
Well, hopefully
who's left to listen? Pagans?
Right. Well, hopefully my audience is well aware of this. I've been discussing this for a very long time, and they know how I feel about organized religion. So I'm pretty sure my audience would be on board with a lot of what you have to say. And even if they aren't, I think it's important we speak these truths, and those that are ready to hear it are going to gravitate towards it, and those that don't want to hear it, they're probably not ready anyway, so it's probably not for them, and that's the way I look at it.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
Right on. So where should we start when looking at the history of the biggest power structure in the planet, the Abrahamic religions?
Yeah. So they go back to Abraham, right? And they all share heroes up until Jesus. Mm-hmm. And then we lose the Jews. And then up to Muhammad, we lose the Christians. But interestingly enough, Islam was actually let's go further back. So Judaism had degenerated big time already before Jesus' time, and the Pharisees, who are the bad guys in the Bible, they are more or less the roots of today's Jews, but it decayed once more after the sacking of Jerusalem in year 70. So there's been two huge destructions of Judaism, and every time what comes from the ashes is further removed from what it once was. Now, interestingly enough, Jesus was not a Christian, of course. Most people who can think realize that. The word Christian was coined, I think it's like 200 after Christ. He was a Jew, but he wasn't any Jew. He was initiated into, in fact, his bloodline as the Desposini, the family of Jesus, both before and after. Because Jesus' bloodline is known. There's actually four. I can read you the sources to his bloodline that exists. Yeah, I'll get back to that. But so he was on both sides. We have his genealogy, and he goes back to prominent original Jews, both in terms of royalty and spirituality. So he and others, because it wasn't a person cult in his time, he was a rabbi. His brother was actually of bigger prominence, at least after the crucifixion and probable exile. So they were running a parallel Jewish movement that wanted to restore Judaism back to its originality. Now, if you go watch Christspiracy, you'll get some of that there. Now, their focus is on animals' rights and vegetarianism. They're coming at it from that angle. They're not so concerned about theology and history and philosophy, but enough that you will pick up. So I do recommend that. They front some excellent scholars like James Tabor and the Dead Sea Scroll guy. I'm blanking on his name. I hope he forgives me. He's still alive, over 90 years old. He wrote the books, the standard books about James the Just, brother of Jesus. Eisenman, I think, yeah. And there's also some decent, there's Blogging Theology is a good YouTube channel I recommend. So you can find, what I'm saying isn't that obscure and unknown, really, even though most people haven't been exposed to it. It's like, if you're a really good student of this type of history, theology, patristics, you kind of know much of what we're going to talk about today. So I'm not claiming exclusive knowledge or channeled revolutionary information, but I think we should highlight it because it's high time in these days we're living in now, where truth is having a renaissance. Everything is being re-examined. Everything is on the table except flat Earth. So why not also go here? And look, any Christian listening has to ask themselves, if Jesus was not born of a virgin, if Jesus did not die on the cross, would that ruin your religion? If it does, your religion is a sham to begin with. You're just following someone because of some miracle stuff. For me, I respect Jesus just as much, if not more, if those two things I just said were not true. If he's a human, which part of Christianity claims, part claims he's we'll not even go into the Trinity paradox because we won't have time, but let's say he's a human and God, just to please those who believe he's some kind of a God. I mean, we are all having the God spark in us anyway. But you should be into Jesus because of what he represents and stuff like that. So anyway, so he wanted to restore and this these Essenes were a part of this. They were called Nazarenes. They had, just like the Templars was a huge organization with many departments. You had military Templars, of course. You had banking Templars. You had Templars who were farmers. You had Templars who were philosophers or spiritual. Same with these. So Nazarenes were another word for, or another section of this Jewish branch that Jesus belonged to. And so when he's called Jesus, he's actually called Jesus the Nazarene, okay? Not Jesus from Nazareth. That's a bullshit translation. Don't take my word for anything. Look into it. Nazareth didn't exist until 200 years after Christ. And at any rate, he was born in Bethlehem, wasn't he? Which is far from Nazareth. So he's Jesus the Nazarene, which means that he's initiated into the Nazarene order. Now, it's a different names. There's the Ebionites, which they were called, often referred to after that. The Essenes, the Nazarenes. It's all more or less the same stream. And they represented the true spirit of Judaism and wanted to get rid of the corruption, the animal slaughter. There's been fakery in Judaic religion. Like, for example, they put in sacrifices. They were originally against it. Jesus was obviously against it because he belonged to this original. So I'm really doing a long, huge, complex story, very, very short here. It's like reading what a movie is about. That's what you. Otherwise, we will go on for 200 hours, right? So that's what we're doing here, and almost done with my rant. So, interestingly, we could discuss whether Jesus survived the crucifixion or not. It's not an important. Let's say he died from the crucifixion. It doesn't change much because what happened was that the religion or I don't even know I should call it religion, the movement, the thing he started got crushed, hijacked and crushed by the Christians. And what we call Christianity today should be called Paulism. It's nothing to do with what they were, like the first church after Christ either died or exiled, was headed by his brother James or Jacob, James the Just, who said that if you just change one law, you change them all. So they were hardcore, almost fundamentalist, and or I should say very devoted, very principled, very real. For them, this wasn't power games, etc., like the Pharisees and stuff. But even though the Pharisees and the corrupted, degenerate version of Judaism was the biggest problem up to Jesus' death, and sometimes after, who really put in the final kill of the real original Christianity was Paulism. Now, Paul, or Saul, he was a Jew, a Roman Jew, who were hunting Christians for as his as a mercenary, right, as his job. And I've always said, look, if you want to eradicate Christianity, what's more effective? Kill one person that you're never going to cover your entire life? How much impact will you do? Or screw up the whole movement, just hijack it, take it over. So whether he intended that or not, that's what he did. The original Christians, the church in Jerusalem, etc., referred to him as Paul the Liar. Some also called him the Satan. He himself did try to kill James, and he was a follower for a little while. Remember, he never met Jesus, and it seems that he was an enemy of several of the disciples. He needed to undermine whoever was around with authority, the real disciples and apostles, and the first church, and the Desposini, which was the family of Jesus. It was a big family. Now, of course, here we could introduce that element that people just can't handle, that Jesus may have had children. But we don't even need that. For the Desposini is the extended family, even so. Brothers, sisters, uncles, etc. So, now, okay, we can zoom in on anything I've been mentioning, but I want to include Islam before yeah. So it seems that already in year 100, the Paulism religion, which actually is a pagan religion. Paul is the one who introduced the virgin birth. He introduced the Trinity. Well, not actually, but the source for it. He introduced the crucifixion and the ascension to heaven, and all these elements are not new. They are taken from pagan religions. Okay, so he was just using what's already out there in many religions, putting it in. And or if you don't believe that, then it's the biggest miracle of all is that all these aspects of Jesus that are so paranormal are identical to earlier avatars. So, but he was charged to spread Christianity among the Gentiles. And it's a non-starter if you had to be Jewish to become a Christian. So he wanted to get rid of this. He wanted to get rid of the whole strict Judaism. In fact, he wasn't even a traditional Jew. Actually, not traditional, because Jesus and James' Judaism is the real traditional one. But he wasn't even a mainstream Jew. He put in pagan elements like this. You know how Christianity is super syncretistic. There's so much philosophical, spiritual, historical that's shared with other religions back then, Mithraism, anything. And so he is behind that. And I would say there's three people who's behind modern Christianity who designed it. It was first Paul, then Constantine, and then Irenaeus, the church father. Those three should be credited with this creation of what has become Christianity since then. Now, one more thing was the Islam. So, shock or above all shock, Islam started out as because as they crushed, but in when was Nicaea? There was two church meetings. The last one, 325, I think, and 395. By then, it was over. By year 400, they started hunting down real Christians and also deviations of Gnostics, everything like Nestorianism, all sorts of. There were so many Christian directions, and the one we know today wasn't the biggest one, but it was the one that was backed by the power. And so after the last church meeting, that's on Constantine. So after, who wasn't a Christian, I think it was Mithras, Zarathustra, Mithras. So after the last church meeting, not the last, but the one in 395, the last of those two, it was really over. There were pockets of Ebionites and other original groups that survived, and one of them, and many of them became, as they became persecuted, you tend to become extremist or fanatic. And one of them was led by Muhammad. Now, he's not like a true representative of original Christianity, because he himself, he pulled a Paul, right? He went into a cave and he met Gabriel, and now I'm renewing stuff. Fine. I mean, no religion is static anyway. All religions always are in development and evolution. So I guess it comes with the territory. But so he had his own spin on it. Now, interestingly, his nephew, Ali, which means light, was his close confidant and was writing down everything he said and stuff. And then there was this other dude. I forgot. I'm not an expert on Islam. Muslims listening in, or people with Muslim background, are going to mockingly look down upon my ignorance here. But they all know who I'm referring to. The uncle or something. He was a military man. So after Muhammad died, he had completed the Quran, but it wasn't published or released among the people yet. Ali was charged with that task. But unfortunately, the military branch of his, because you know when they were a war, they had to war to survive, etc. So they took over and they cast out Ali, who was supposed to be who was the assigned successor. Now Ali is the origin to the Islamic. You know, Islam has as many versions as Christianity, and Judaism too. It's not like one thing and then a few small rebels. No, they've all been very complex. But in Islam, Shia, today it's two big ones, three if you want to include Sufis. Mm-hmm. But there's more than that. I'm just doing the simple newspaper headline version. And so Shia is from Ali. And Shia is the persecuted one today. Everyone is ganging up with Sunni to crush Shia, even though all terrorism comes from Sunni, all mysticism comes from Shia. Mm. Not all, but most. So it's very interesting. It's like we are ganging up with Paul to crush Jesus, you understand? Or James, I mean.
You mentioned that there was a much earlier form of Judaism which wasn't corrupted, and a lot of Christianity stems from these pagan beliefs. Would you say that a lot of the Abrahamic religions is just bits and pieces of these earlier Judaic and pagan practices?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll chew on that while I just complete the Muslim thing. I just want to say about this uncle that they took the Quran after they threw out Ali, and they made revisions to it, and then they published it. That's why I think Islam today is so easy to be manipulated as a warring religion. Because a warring faction took over, and God knows what kind of alterations they did. The conspiracy people think that in the original Quran, it was the same as you don't eat meat and certainly don't slaughter animals, sacrifice them religiously. Same with Christianity, same with Judaism, but these powers takes over, these warring, murdering powers that are so strong in our world today. Trump says, I'm going to Doge, we're going to cut spending, we're going to save the economy and blah, blah, blah. And Pentagon missing trillions upon trillions upon trillions. Catherine Fitz, latest number, I think is it 22 trillion or 50? I forgot. There. Obviously used for. But then what do? They increase the military budget to 1 trillion. So the warring powers, and I think it's because they get I think it's connected to the classified space program. They come in and look, this is what's going on. You want to screw with this? there's a paradigm that we don't have access to. We're getting access to all the conspiracies, all the corruption, all the things that used to be lunatic. That's coming out in the mainstream now. But you think, people really think, okay, it's over. Everything is, there's no more secrets. No, it's a new level. It's another level to what's going on. These are old. JFK, even 9/11. This is yesterday's news. It served its purpose. Even COVID, which actually I don't think they wanted COVID to get out so early. Anyway, I'm talking myself away. You asked about pagan influences. I think the pagan influences are indirect. First of all, there were Buddhist missionaries in the Holy Land, just as there were Jews all the way into Asia. In fact, in Kashmir, there was a Christian state. Much looks like as if it was actually run by Jesus himself after the crucifixion. If not Jesus, then his clone. It's a huge topic, so I don't know if you have time to go into that.
Yeah.
But Jews been everywhere, man. And at any rate, there was, I think that on Christianity, there are pagan influences just by the virtue of Paul designing a new religion based upon some crumbs of Christianity, but removing everything Judaic and also anything that he didn't like and couldn't use. So he needed to sell this to the Romans. Okay, he was I'll say two good things about Paul. He was a brilliant marketer. He really knew his business about spreading this thing. So he designed an entirely new religion based upon this one, and it worked very well. And the only good thing I could say about him is that thanks to Paul, you can become a Christian without having to chop off the... Although you Americans do it anyway. I don't know why. But see, Muslims have kept that because they come from the original Judaic Christian stream. But not Paul, and so anybody could have access. I'm not saying you couldn't become a Christian if under Jesus and James, but you had to accept the Torah. You had to be a proper Jew. Original Jew, which was much more spiritual. There was reincarnation, there was vegetarianism. But I would say a big influence on Christianity, even Jesus, before Paul, the real Christianity was the Pythagoreans. Reincarnation, dressed in white linen, concerned with healing, just like the Theraputa, a Jewish sect, a branch of the Essenes, in operating especially in Egypt. I think that's where Jesus picked that up. But they were a branch of the Essenes, and they were a direct descendant of the Pythagoreans. So there was like a Jewish Pythagorean version. Long hair, love animals, don't eat meat, blah, blah, blah. So these things are not just Buddhistic, they are also Pythagorean. So I don't agree with those who think it's a Buddhist influence on, I mean, there may have been influence as people have met and things are exchanging. No religion is static, all develop. But as for the actual original influence, I think it comes from the Pythagorean, that you may call pagan, and maybe that's why the early church fathers all loved Plotin, Plato, Pythagoras, all these guys. Anyway, so and on Judaism, Judaism comes from Egypt really, and maybe an offshoot, a rebellious. Many people think, is it Akhenaton? They think were Moses.
Yeah.
So. It's complex stuff. Time machine, I guess. We should send a drone back and find out.
And it was thanks to...
We have the technology.
Right.
Sorry, go on.
It was thanks to Constantine that the doctrine was changed from belief in reincarnation to damnation in hell. Is that correct?
I don't think that was Constantine, but it's thanks to Constantine that it became a state religion. and that that the Pauline religion got so much power they could start persecuting and this horrific, outrageous notion about purging. Like, we need one. The Bible, when was that invented? I forgot already. The Bible was collected very late. Like, let's just say by 400 it was over. Mm-hmm. So, but then they had a Bible. But even in the Bible, there's so much traces of the original stuff they didn't get out. For example, there's confirmation of reincarnation, and there's so much there that, which is why Christianity can still work. Paulism can still work somewhat in the line of the original Jesus, even though they banished, so we have 4 canonic, right? Mark is the oldest and probably the only one you should regard. You have to disregard the end of Mark, because Mark originally has nothing about the crucifixion and the ascension. That's taken, mainstream theologians agree that it's a mesh of Luke and Matthew, which is put into Mark, so that it shall conform with the 2 others. Luke and Matthew are copycats, although they're also using other sources. Luke has some sources that Matthew doesn't have and Mark doesn't have, and Matthew have some that Luke and Mark doesn't have, and it's called Q, but it's different Qs really. And we don't know how original those were, but we know Mark is pretty old. I think it's like around 70 after Christ. So there was still, it was even the original church was around, so it couldn't be too outrageous, Mark, which is why Mark is very sober, very down to earth, really, just describes some basic stuff. John is taking off. John is the newest, the most recent, and it's just a fantasy. It's just someone's notion of, John is cool, it's interesting, it's a mystical scripture, really. But Luke and Matthew are really, it had taken off by then. But what about the Gospel of Thomas or Mary? In Thomas starts with, these are the secret words that Jesus told Thomas. Already there you see there's a kind of a mystery school thing going on. Like, everybody back then were a mystery society. It's not, people have a very poor understanding of that. They think it's like a conspiracy and power thing, and nothing to do. I don't know if you have time to talk about that. But what about Mary, Gospel of Mary, where it's clear that she was privy to information that others weren't, because Peter berates her. Tell us what the master told you that we could not access. What about the Gospel of, is it Philip, where he reveals that Mary and Jesus were hissing each other on the mouth? Yeah, so there's so much that's censored. There's so many. What about the Gospel of Judas, that says that Judas didn't want to do it, but he was charged by Jesus, so he became the prototype of the eternal scapegoat, the patsy. He had to take that role that he had. There's so much. Look, oh my God, look, how many hours do we have? So we're scratching the surface. I'm sure traditional Christians are crossing themselves, and I'm Satan now. But I'm just telling you what's out there. I didn't invent any of this, and I'm even just scratching the surface. If you ever dare looking under the hood, if you ever dare starting questioning, look at it as science fiction then. Look at this as an interesting, keep your religion, keep your beliefs. I'm the last one who want to take that away from you, because if it works, go with it, okay? Whatever you believe. Muslims, Christians, Jews. But when it comes to the historicity of these things, you should, and if you care about truth, you should look into these things. And God is so interesting. I haven't even dropped the biggest bombs, but some bombs I won't drop here. It's going to be.
Oh, this is great, man. I love it. And I think that it's very important for us to hear about the history and shed a lot of the dogma that keeps us in these boxes and prevents us from gaining understanding of these things. But I consider myself to be a follower of the teachings of Jesus Christ. Those things seem to be the answer to the exit of the Matrix. Whether you believe he was a real person, whether you believe the truth about the stories or not, the teachings are pretty solid, and if you follow that, in my perspective, you're going to be all right. But I'd love to hear more about the real history of Jesus, the bloodline, and some of the things that you found out about.
Yeah. Yeah, I can read an interesting thing about what we know about Jesus, the genealogy. But I want to say first that I agree with you. You can use it as an exit point from the matrix, but it's obviously not the only one. Because that means that everybody who lived before Jesus were trapped forever. And it means that everybody who never hears about Jesus is going to be trapped forever. And it means that when we suicide as a civilization and we become the legendary Atlantis and something else rises up, they are screwed. No. You can use any. In fact, you know the parable about the false master and the real disciple?
I might have heard it.
It's basic. Yeah, well, long story short, con man had a very naive, dedicated disciple, told him that if you throw yourself out from this cliff, you can fly. Did it and flew. Con man looked in shock, did the same, fell down, died. So this is how it works. If you are a sincere truth seeker, there's so many keys you can use. I mean, it's not just about being stuck and getting out. Cosmos is more complex. So depending on what you're doing, what you're seeking, you can liberate yourself on different levels to different degrees. I don't think it's done in one lifetime anyway. But you can get closer, and who knows if you can reincarnate. Maybe you won't even reincarnate here. But bottom line is that, yes, you can use many things as exit, but it has to be love and wisdom, which is the two legs you're walking on. Truth maybe being the compass then. So yeah, and totally, you can use polism for that. So you want to know the genealogy. So there are basically four. There's a very interesting story about the Desposini coming to. Okay, I'll just read from a book here. The major documents are as follows. The Abdius document from circa 170 AD. The volumes written in Aramaic include many accurate details of the genealogy of Jesus. The Roman Church merely rewrote the document, eliminating some of the more embarrassing details. The edited work written in Latin is called the Pseudo-Abdius. There are 10 volumes called Historia Certaminis Apostolica. The original was written by a fourth-generation descendant of Jesus and Mary Magdalene, the Lydia. Abdius was the bishop of Babylon around 150 AD. A set of these 10 volumes, the writing of Abdius in Latin, found in the Norris collection at Dickinson College, was used by Professor Hughes Montgomery in his research. 2. The Desposini genealogy, 318 AD. This is the document written in Latin presented by the Desposini bishops to Sylvester, Bishop of Rome, in 318 AD. A series of complete genealogical charts dating from the time of Jesus. I'll tell you that story when the Desposini came to Sylvester later. Stored in the high security section of the Vatican Secret Archives, photographs were taken of this document, thereby confirming the structure of the true genealogy of Jesus and his family. Then you have 3, the Nazarene Scrolls, circa 65 AD. In the 1960s, a Dead Sea Scroll that provided extensive details of the genealogy of Jesus, written in Aramaic, was given to Tom Gibson Morrison to translate into English. A translation was shown to church authorities, who promptly halted the project. They allegedly purchased the scroll for over $1 million, which was a lot of money back in the 60s. The genealogical charts of this scroll end at approximately 70 AD. And then you have the Templar boxes. This is the big reason why the Templars were smacked down on and why they dissented to begin with, although I think they were founded with this in mind. I don't think they ever were truly loyal to the Vatican, but they wanted to sack the basement of Solomon's temple and get their hands on what they could get their hands on. And this is one of the big things, notwithstanding the Ark and the Grail and all that stuff, menorah. Before the persecution of the Knights Templars in 1307, the Templar leader Jacques de Molay prepared 40 Templar boxes, each containing factual details on the family life of Jesus. 2 of these boxes were distributed to each of the 20 senior Desposini families. And we're talking about south of France, where Mary Magdalene, I think it was, came very early. And Cathars or Albigenses are related to these. So those area. And they were smacked down. And the Cathars seems to actually follow a version of Christianity which is truer to Christ. Or Yeshua. One of these boxes. Yeah, okay. So all of the noted sources present an accurate history of Jesus and his family in the West about 2,000 years ago. And these are the documents that the Roman Church did not succeed in concealing or destroying. And here's an important point. Given that they all confirm each other, it is ridiculous to even allege forgery or later editorial additions to any particular document. If it was just one, fine, you could dismiss it as something like that. But they all say the same. They come from different places, different times. So the case is closed. Now, yeah, you wanna comment before I rant on?
No, go for it, because I have a couple of questions after you're done with this.
Damn, I wanted to buy some time here to find the proper, but okay. 1880, the direct family of Jesus, the Desposini, are summoned to the Lateran Palace, I don't know how to pronounce this, in the Vatican, to remove their hereditary bishoprics. The meeting had been arranged by Bishop Sylvester at the behest of Emperor Constantine. Representatives of the 6 major family lines were in attendance, resplendent in their shining white robes, sandals, long hair, and beards, just like the Merovingians, kings of France, just like the Pythagoreans, just like the Essenes. This is a trademark. They had come to Rome to demand recognition for the authentic ideology of Jesus, wanting leadership roles in the Christian movement, Pauline movement. They also wanted to move the center of Christianity from Rome to Jerusalem. How naive could they be? It's all about power, man. They brought with them, I mean, they had all rights, but you know, they're not in the business of truth. If they were in the business of truth, just finding the Nag Hammadi scrolls and the Dead Sea Scrolls, if anyone in the Vatican was sincere, they would be like, oh my God, great, we're learning more. So much is lost about the guy we're worshipping, the founder of our religion. Let's be loyal adherers to, no. What's the reaction? Oh my God, let's burn this, let's hide this, let's kill people, let's bribe people. So that tells you all you need to know. And by the way, these things doesn't need to be found because it's already in the Vatican library. They always took one copy for themselves and then destroyed the rest. Didn't take the copies to make them survive. Took the copies because if you know what's going on, you need to know your enemy. You need to know what's out there. You need to know the truth so that you can maintain the lie. Otherwise, God knows what will happen later and they can be led astray themselves. So they've always had, anyway, I'm ranting myself away. Let's go back
it's all good.
Yeah. Wanting to back to Jerusalem, where James the Just Church had been. They brought with them, so I forgot to say, it was in the year 70 after Christ that the final, that's when they crushed the real church of Jesus. I mean, it survived up until year 400. That's when it was finally over. I mean, from 70 to 400, there were surviving pockets, like the Desposini, right? So, but the sacking of Jerusalem in 70 really crushed any real fragment of Judaism and Christianity. So it was a new order after that. So the Desposini brought with them the genealogical charts to show them that they were the true descendants of Jesus. Bishop Sylvester, who was not impressed, allegedly told them that Jesus had preached the wrong religion and showed them to the door. Why not? Yeah. He's a Pauline. He's not a Jesus follower. That should have been the end of the story had it not been for 1 minute detail. An assistant took the genealogical charts and placed them in the Vatican library, a perfectly natural thing to do at the time. Let us now jump forward 1700 years to 2010, when a researcher, after years of investigation searching in the secret archives of the Vatican library, locates these genealogical charts by mistake, by the way. During the 3-hour lunch breaks, he finds that he has entered the very secret section of the library. Somehow he also manages to avoid detection by the security cameras. At the first suitable moment, he was allowed to go there, but not to dig where he now dug. Yeah. At the first suitable moment, he takes digital pictures of the charts, leaving when the work is complete. This researcher brought the genealogical information. This is just one of the 4 sources I read, the one that was from the Vatican. Brought the genealogical information to his associates in England, and through a mutual researcher, sent a translation segment about the life of Jesus. Yeah, I won't go on. There is more about the meeting between the Desposini and.
You said something earlier that I'd love to hear more about, the possibility that Jesus wasn't crucified. He may have either faked his death, or there was some sort of clone of him or double of himself.
So, you know what Jesus is called in the Middle East?
What's that?
He's called Issa. And actually, you could discuss if it's a title or a name, because it means Jesus Christ means the what's that in English? The anointed one. And is it not the chosen? Jesus, I'm having a blank on. But it both means something. Like I said, I have low energy.
Oh, it's okay. I appreciate it.
But people can look up all these things. It's not my job here to give you the details and educate you. My job is to just let those who doesn't know about this, that it exists. And if you're interested, go and find out. Verify everything I say. Don't take anything just by my word. If you do, you're not following the prescribes of truth. 100%. So verify for yourself. Of course, the problem is where to look and how to do source criticism and blah, blah, blah. I can't take responsibility for all that, but my shows are one way to I have on experts, and maybe you will come a little closer. But the fact of the matter is that we have mythicists are those fools who think that Jesus never existed, and very popular among atheists, of course, for ideological reasons. But the fact of the matter is we have so many sources about Jesus. Not just, of course, we have the canonical stuff, right? And then we have the apocryphs, pseudepigraphs. But even if you look outside of the Christian and Pauline religions, we have tons of info about Jesus. We have many secular sources, Pliny, Josephus, many others. We have... So we have Roman sources, stuff like that. We have Jewish sources about Jesus. One of my favorite is one of the infancy gospels, which tells about how I forgot how old he was. You know, there's nothing about him from 12 to 30. But this here he was younger. So this is a part. He didn't make it to the Bible, so he had this ability. He could do miracles even then. And there was this kid. He did something with his kid. He made him limp or something. He like, of course, Jesus had allegedly strong powers, couldn't control them, was a child, we can forgive him. So he gave him the evil eye, a bully or something, and I forgot the details, but he hurt another kid with his powers, and Mary and Joseph trying to cover up, you know, the condition of their son, right? Don't do this, phew. So, so we have Sanskrit sources, we have Tibetan sources, Arabic sources, Persian sources, Urdu sources, Buddhist sources. There's a very good gospel called Issa, the Prophet or something, from Tibet. From, is it that monastery that everybody in martial arts, is it the Shaolin monks? There's actually one very famous monastery that this leaked out from. So we have a lot of info, but it seems that the Muslim insists that he survived the crucifixion. They're not the only one to do that. There were many Christian streams that did the same. I don't know if any of the contemporary do, but originally, and there's also even evidence for it, like circumstantial evidence, even in the canonic. But you have to listen to theologians discuss it, etc. So let's say he did survive, because look, man, what kind of ghost goes around with hole in their hands? Okay, and the disciples touched him. Okay, he was like physical to them. So, okay, I guess you have to believe that, like the Jehovah's Witness, that the atoms were coming back together. But then you have other claims about, which are more like he ascended like the Tibetan monks used to do, on a cloud, like he was a spiritual. So even the Bible can't agree. But this is the problem. The Bible isn't one thing. It's a collection of different books, some with more genuinity than others. Very many different sources. So let's say he did survive, and there's many good books about how this whole thing happened. There's even a document called The Eyewitness to the Crucifixion. But Joseph of Arimathea, these Essenes were master experts in healing. And Jesus was a master yogi. He knew everything yogis did. He could breathe. He could put himself into this, I don't know the English word, but it's like almost a death stage. It's like a fake death stage, incubation thing. That was a part of the initiation anyway. So when he hanged on the cross, he was breathing he was lowering to minimum, use minimum energy. And why would he bleed when the spear of destiny is put into his side, right? If he's dead, it wouldn't happen. So, and why does it say that the cave, the tomb, was empty when obviously he was gone from there. Now the Essenes had influence, some of them, especially Joseph Arimathea. So they had some wealthy people, some bribery, etc. So they managed to get Jesus out of there. Is how this story goes. Heal him, and he went with Thomas. Thomas Didymus, by the way, Thomas means twin. Didymus means twin. So his name is really twin. And if you look at the early depictions of Christianity, hang on, I'll see if I can find. Yeah, here is. I'll show you. Let's see. Can you see this?
Yes.
See that? Two babies. That's Thomas and Jesus. So they were twins. Wow. James was the big brother. And he had other siblings too, also mentioned in the Bible. Wow. So they went to the east, first to Persia, and he had there's even, we even have maps of their chart. So he ended up in Kashmir, where his tomb still is. And thank God, there was, when these areas became Muslimized, remember that Muslims have more respect for Christianity than Christians have for Islam, thank God. That's why they often preserve churches and stuff and documents, and that's also why they honor like Christian people like Jesus himself. And there was this huge tribe in this area. They were called the Muslims of Issa, meaning the Muslims of Jesus, or the devoted of Jesus. So they accepted Islam. They had to, right? Also, just like Christianity, Islam was also spread with the sword. Not always, not everywhere, but here and there, at that point it was. But they said, okay, as long as you believe, sure, you can go on worshipping Jesus and all that stuff. Just be loyal Muslims and we don't care. Moving on, right? So that happened a lot. And so they kept the identity for a long time. Even today, there are still fragments that point to. But when Jesus came there were already thousands and thousands of Jews living there. It was one of the main exile routes of Jews up in India and Kashmir. And you know there are one of the earliest Christian churches, Thomas Church, is all the way to China, India, and where they have survived because, you know, Persia and other places became Muslim. So yeah, there was Jewish roots going that way, and then later Christians, and among them were Jesus, and he was in charge. He was ruling. Everybody doesn't agree about this, so this is just one track. Yeah. But it's an interesting one. I think it has much going for it. I've looked a lot into it. It's very dangerous to talk about this. People don't want to hear it. They need to know he lived. He died on the cross, but he lived actually to the age of... Actually, James died before Jesus. He got killed by the Pauline people. So, and actually, no, I think he got killed, but it was... I guess it was the Romans and the Pharisees, but it was the Paulines who were behind this. Okay, I wasn't... We decided like 30 seconds before we started that this was what we were going to discuss, right? We were really going to discuss something else, but then half a minute before you started recording, we did. So I'm not prepared.
Oh, you did a wonderful job with the limited time that you had to prep for it, man. But we do have a few minutes left. I want to get your thoughts on the possibility that what we're experiencing now is an attempt to manifest biblical prophecy, is scripted revelations in a sense that the power structure, the global parasitic ruling class, is using a series of wars and high-impact events and political ideologies to attempt to bring about biblical prophecy. Do you think that is a part of what's happening?
Well, it's not a biblical prophecy, if so. It's an look, if Christianity, Paulism, was going astray to begin with, look at evangelism. That's an insane perversion. Has obviously nothing to do with Jesus and that stuff, but not even anything to do with Paulism, okay? So this insane belief, you know, the evangelics think that all the Jews will die when Christ comes back or something, right? And the Jews think... And the Jews obviously doesn't believe that Christ will come back. So they're just using these crazy lunatics, exploiting them. And these evangelics, they support slaughter and eradication of the original churches and the original Christian communities that are Pauline communities that are still around there. They think all Palestinians are Muslims. And obviously they think Muslims should die. So how Christian is that? Right. Fact of the matter is there are Christian Palestinians, and hold on to your hat, there are Jewish Palestinians. They have had the option to become Israeli citizens, which they don't want to do. And there's not many left, neither of the Christians or the Jewish, because they're all being killed and eradicated. They're bombing the church in Bethlehem. Churches there, and Justin Amash is a libertarian politician in American parliament, Congress, and he's of the Christian Palestinian parents, and so it's insane that these evangelics are hooking up with the Zionists. But of course, the evangelics are really just neocons, neolibs, neocons, and the Zionists are really just Jewish Nazis, and they cooperated with the. It's not even. It's not just a metaphor. It's historical. We could go into that too. I mentioned it in some of my shows. We haven't had a full show on it, but we're going a little into it. Those Jews who were taken in Europe, 4 million or however many they they were non-Zionists. Those who didn't want to go to, because look, if you live in Kashmir, and for 2,000 years your ancestors have lived there, are you going to just someone say no, move to England because 2,000 years ago some people came from England to your country? It's insane. You live where you live, right? Nobody cares what happened 2,000 years ago, and now we're going to relocate based on that. What's next? We're going to relocate based on gender, based on skin color, eye color. I mean, this is wokeness. It's Nazism.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is some kind of wokeness. It's there, and when it comes to Zionism, that's right wokeness, right-wing wokeness. Wokeness is bad, no matter which wing it's a pollution on any wing. Anyway, I don't know if I actually answered your question, but I don't think. I think they're trying to manufacture something like that, but history doesn't repeat itself. It just rhymes. So. And imitates. So I don't think there's anything biblical going on now. And if someone sees Jesus in the sky, I promise you, it's a hologram, a projection.
It's mainly theatrics to sort of bring about these emotional reactions from the masses, right?
It's politics. It's what happened in Jesus' times. It's happened after Jesus' time. It even happened before Jesus' time, and it's happening now. And we can never find the truth if we follow the mainstream of anything. Okay, it is in the small pockets. It's in underneath the surface that things survive, and that's where you have to look if you care about truth, like I do, and you
100%.
But most people don't.
It's unfortunate.
They like to they like to compliment it in their party speeches, but in reality, truth is a huge threat and uncomfortable injury to most people, especially their emotions.
Yeah, which is why it's so important that you are presenting this stuff and getting it out there. And thank you so much for coming on. Thank you again for taking the time to do this. Definitely love to do it again. Before you go, remind the audience the best way to find your content.
Right now, the best way is not YouTube. I haven't released anything there for 2-3 years. Podcast is the best. Then there are also Rumble and Odyssey, but no shows have been. Yeah, every episode has survived on podcast. Nothing has been censored. On these other platforms, it's not complete. So I will go.
All right, I'll have links right in the description directly to the podcast.
Or my website, forumborealis.net.
I'll have that as well. Thank you, Al, so much. Love to do it again. And until next time, everyone, have a wonderful evening. We'll talk again tomorrow.